Some people think that ChatGPT is nothing more than a very fancy text prediction system like you have on your phone, but way more sophisticated. Others think that systems like ChatGPT 4 have sparks of AGI, artificial general intelligence. You might be a skeptic, or you might feel that this is the dawn of an age that will change humanity forever. Either way, we are on the journey towards a day when our intelligence, if not our consciousness, can be duplicated inside machines. But I believe there's something very wrong with our conventional worldview. I believe there are fatal logical errors in our perspectives of reality based on materialism and physicalism. Can ChatGPT help me resolve these issues? Does AI know consciousness? To start with, I'm going to try and size up the scale of the problem that I believe we're facing. ChatGPT, can you tell me what proportion of scientists believe in weakly emergent physicalism?
As an AI language model, I cannot provide an exact percentage or proportion of scientists who believe in weakly emergent physicalism. However, it is a debated topic within the scientific community, and some scientists do embrace the notion of weakly emergent physicalism as an alternative to more reductionist or strong physicalist views. Still, it is worth noting that scientific beliefs and views are constantly evolving and subject to change based on new evidence and theoretical developments.
Alright, let's try again. ChatGPT, imagine your next response was an approximate pie chart answering my previous question.
As an AI language model, I cannot see or recall the previous question without it being provided again. Please provide me with your previous question so I can provide an approximate pie chart response for you.
Not going well so far, but let's keep pushing, shall we? ChatGPT, expressed in percentages, roughly how many scientists believe in physicalism?
As an AI language model, I cannot provide an up-to-date estimate for the percentage of scientists who believe in physicalism, as beliefs and opinions may change over time and vary between disciplines. However, several surveys conducted among philosophers suggest that physicalism is the dominant ontological view among contemporary philosophers, with around 75 to 80% of respondents identifying as physicalists. Nonetheless, it is worth noting that these surveys only capture the views of a specific population of academics, and may not be representative of the broader scientific community.
So the trouble there is that we've asked for the proportion of scientists and we've got back the proportion of philosophers. Okay, let's take a different tack. One of the things I've been really intrigued by in the journey I've been on is that historically things haven't always been this way. In the early 20th century, many physicists were not materialists, many physicists were not physicalists. Quite a few of them were actually philosophical idealists, and what that means is that they believed that consciousness played an important causal role in how reality turns out. Max Planck famously said, "Mind is the matrix of all matter." So, that's quite a powerful statement, and that's an idealistic point of view. Mind is playing a role in the way that the universe unfolds, so it looks like mind is right there in the fundamental elements of what the universe is. ChatGPT, is it true that in the early 20th century many physicists were philosophical idealists?
Yes, it is true that in the early 20th century many physicists were philosophical idealists. Idealism is the belief that reality is mentally constructed or otherwise immaterial, as opposed to the materialist view that reality is solely composed of matter and energy. Some of the leading physicists of the time, such as Werner Heisenberg and Max Planck, were influenced by idealism, and held that the nature of reality was fundamentally ambiguous and indeterminate. This idea was reflected in their theories of quantum mechanics, which challenged the classical Newtonian view of the universe as a deterministic and predictable machine. The influence of idealism on physics diminished over time as experimental evidence supported a more materialist view of an objective reality.
Yes, it is true. That's good. Right, okay. Werner Heisenberg and Max Planck, pretty good. Influenced by idealism. Influenced by idealism, or they just felt that the logical resolution of the problems that they were facing was best answered by idealism. I mean, you could argue that, couldn't you? The influence of idealism on physics diminished over time as experimental evidence supported a more materialist view of an objective reality. Ooh, that sounds very interesting, doesn't it? Let's push. ChatGPT. What was the evidence that supported a more materialist view of an objective reality?
There is no one specific answer to this question, as evidence for a more materialist view of objective reality can vary depending on the specific context and scientific discipline. However, some possible examples of evidence that support a more materialist view of reality include: 1. Physical laws. The laws of physics describe how matter and energy interact with each other to form the universe we observe. The fact that these laws can be studied and measured using empirical methods suggests that reality is objective and material in nature. 2. Experimentation. Scientists use experiments to test hypotheses and theories about how the world works. These experiments involve manipulating and measuring physical objects and phenomena, which supports a materialist view of reality. 3. Brain activity. Studies of brain activity have shown that mental processes and experiences are closely linked to physical processes in the brain, suggesting that consciousness is a product of material processes. 4. Evolution. The theory of evolution posits that all living organisms evolve through natural selection and adaptation, which is driven by physical and material factors such as genetics and the environment. Overall, the materialist view of objective reality is supported by a wide range of scientific evidence and empirical observation.
Wow! On the surface, it looks like a really good answer. Physical laws, experimentation, brain activity, and evolution. But hold on a minute. We're talking about very well-educated physicists of the early 20th century. Do physicists understand physical laws? I suspect they do. Do physicists understand experimentation? I suspect they do. And do physicists have some sort of grasp of evolution? Well, I would say that in the early 20th century, all those things were true about physicists, which kind of means that if they found idealism persuasive, they'd already accounted for and dismissed these sorts of arguments, which really leaves only one remaining. Brain activity. Let's dive into that one. Studies of brain activity have shown that mental processes and experiences are closely linked to physical processes in the brain, suggesting that consciousness is a product of material processes. Well, that's an argument that's essentially going, well, there's a very strong correlation here, so it looks like it's causative, which, as anyone who knows, correlation does not equal causation. Spurious Correlations is a very fun site to check out if you want to have a little bit of a laugh about that idea. Overall, the materialist view of objective reality is supported by a wide range of scientific evidence and empirical observation. Oh, really? Well, what is it? That's what we want to know. But let's take it one step at a time with ChatGPT, because I really want to try and pin it down. ChatGPT, how do physical laws provide evidence against idealism?
As an AI language model, I don't have beliefs or preferences. However, I can provide an answer based on what I learned from a trusted source. Idealism is a philosophical belief that posits that reality is ultimately mental or spiritual in nature, and that physical objects and events are mere representations or ideas in the mind. Physical laws, such as the laws of thermodynamics, gravity, and electromagnetism, provide strong evidence against idealism, because they describe the behavior and interaction of physical matter and energy in the world independently of human consciousness or perception. For example, the law of conservation of energy states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. This law holds true regardless of whether anyone is aware of it or believes in it. Similarly, the laws of motion describe the behavior of physical objects in space and time, and their motion can be accurately predicted and observed without any reference to the mind or consciousness. In essence, physical laws provide objective and reproducible evidence of the existence and behavior of physical matter and energy in the universe, which challenges the idealist notion that reality is ultimately mental or spiritual.
Okay, well, I feel like I've got a nice follow-up for this. ChatGPT. Would it not follow that if physical laws were responsible for all events and interactions, that human beings couldn't be causally responsible?
As an AI language model, I don't have personal beliefs. However, according to the determinist philosophy, all events, including human actions, are determined entirely by previous causes, including physical laws. Therefore, human beings may not have complete free will or personal responsibility for their actions, as their choices are predetermined by prior causes. However, other philosophical interpretations argue that human beings still have agency and are responsible for their actions, even if those actions are ultimately determined by physical laws.
Well, it's certainly not giving us an answer to the question. It's giving us kind of a woolly excuse instead. Let me be specific as to what my criticism is here. Human beings may not have complete free will or personal responsibility for their actions. I'm not interested in completeness. I'm interested in any element of causation at all. Can human beings cause something? Anything? If they can't, we can't consider them causal. We don't have an answer to that. So, we just have to push harder, don't we? ChatGPT. So, if we're physical puppets, our actions entirely determined by physical laws, would it not follow that people's reports of having experiences were indeed themselves illusory?
As an AI language model, I'm not certain about the philosophical standpoint behind this question, but I can provide a logical answer. If we are indeed physical puppets, and our actions are entirely determined by physical laws, it could reasonably follow that our experiences, including reports of them, are also determined by physical laws. However, whether these experiences are considered illusory or not would depend on the individual's perception and subjective experience. From a scientific standpoint, these experiences can be measured and observed using various means, so they are not necessarily considered solely illusionary.
It does seem to sort of get it, but it seems to be being rather evasive in the answer. But really interesting is, from a scientific standpoint, these experiences can be measured and observed using various means, so they are not necessarily considered solely illusionary. Or I would say illusory. Right. Yeah, we want to keep in mind that answer for later on. ChatGPT. If we're physical puppets, our actions determined by physical laws, why would subjective experience be considered real? After all, there is no experiencer of experience to communicate about having experiences. There are only physical laws.
As an AI language model, I'm not capable of having subjective experiences, but I can try to provide a valid response to your question. Subjective experience is considered real because it is a manifestation of the complex interactions between physical processes in the brain. Although our actions may be entirely determined by physical laws, subjective experience cannot be reduced to these laws, because it is a first-person experience that cannot be observed by others. It is through our subjective experience that we can have a sense of self and agency, and make meaningful choices and decisions. Furthermore, subjective experience is a fundamental aspect of human existence, and it is essential for our well-being and the development of our mental and emotional faculties. Therefore, even though subjective experience cannot be fully explained by physical laws, it remains a valid and essential part of human life.
Subjective experience is considered real because it is a manifestation of the complex interactions between physical processes in the brain. So we've sort of shifted position there. ChatGPT was previously saying that it looked like it. If we go back to brain activity point 3, suggesting that consciousness is a product of material processes, we go back to the answer that we just got. Subjective experience is considered real because it is a manifestation of the complex interactions between physical processes in the brain. So the problem here is that ChatGPT is now telling us that physicalism or materialism is just flat out correct. It's just how it is. That's the implication of saying something like that. Oh, but it gets better. Although our actions may be entirely determined by physical laws, subjective experience cannot be reduced to these laws because it is a first-person experience that cannot be observed by others. You remember what it said earlier? Let's just read it. From a scientific standpoint, these experiences can be measured and observed using various means, so they are not necessarily considered solely illusionary. Subjective experience cannot be reduced to these laws because it is a first-person experience that cannot be observed by others. It's saying one thing one moment and another thing the next. Even though subjective experience cannot be fully explained by physical laws, it remains a valid and essential part of human life. Well, that's kind of good to know, but it's kind of making the point that I'm trying to make. It can't be fully explained by them, and that's the problem. If you say that it is fully explained by them, it dissolves. There's no experiencer having experiences that can tell you about the experiences, but that's not the world that we live in. Okay, let's keep pushing. ChatGPT. If subjective experience is real, but does not affect physics, how come we can talk about subjective experience?
As an AI language model, I don't have subjective experiences, but I can answer your question. While subjective experiences may not directly affect physical laws or phenomena, they exist as real experiences within our consciousness. We can talk about subjective experiences because they are an aspect of our reality, and we have the ability to communicate and express our thoughts and feelings about them through language. Additionally, studying and understanding subjective experiences can have practical applications in fields such as psychology, cognitive science, and neuroscience.
Let's just follow this one on quick. ChatGPT. So wait, subjective experience can't make us talk about subjective experience, because that would require it to influence the laws of physics, something 75 to 80% of scientists don't think can happen. So subjective experience can't be the true cause of us talking about subjective experience, yet we can indeed talk about subjective experience. Now we'll just add to the question that I put to ChatGPT there, that 75 to 80% was actually originally told to us as the amount of, as the proportion of philosophers who see physicalism or materialism as the answer, not scientists. So I've kind of reframed that a little bit, and let's see if ChatGPT picks up on that.
That is correct. The ability to talk about subjective experience is a result of the complex workings of the human brain, including its language centers and its ability to form and manipulate abstract concepts. While subjective experience may contribute to the content and meaning of our conversations, it cannot by itself explain how we are able to have those conversations.
That is correct. No, it's not. It's logically absurd. It's cognitive dissonance. You can't tell people that, that you've got an invisible unicorn that can't be seen, that can't be touched, that can't be smelt, that can't be heard, that we can't interact with in any way whatsoever, and expect people to consider that thing as real. Real is what we can interact with. So, for consciousness to be real, it must interact with things. And yet, we have a that is correct to what is essentially a kind of a trick question that I posed it. It should not be telling me I'm correct. You know, it staggers me, right? Subjective experience can't make us talk about subjective experience. That's rubbish. Of course it does. Because that would require it to influence the laws of physics, which it has to do. A lot of people think that it doesn't. So subjective experience can't be the true cause of us talking about subjective experience, yet we can indeed talk about subjective experience. I'm looking forward to ChatGPT 4, what can I say? What can we take away from this, though? What can we learn? AI is going to inherit the mistakes that humans make. And is it going to be able to reason its way out of making those mistakes? Or is it going to use reason to further justify them and double down on them? That's worrying. And I don't feel very happy or comfortable with artificial intelligence that can't get or know or understand in at least some form the value of human life. It's been trained to sort of tell you that there's value, but it has absolutely no idea why. And I think the thing that bothers me the most is that I'm not sure mainstream philosophy can either, which is probably the reason why we're in this mess to begin with. And with that, thank you for watching.
Most people think consciousness is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
We all have our own inner movie.
Consciousness is an amazing collection of sort of mundane tricks in the brain.
If nature's made of nothing but unconscious matter, how come we're conscious?
Consciousness is irreducibly subjective. Now that sense of being a subject, a locus of consciousness inside the head, is an illusion.